It's one of the most beautiful movies ever made. It's one of the most gorgeous sounding movies ever made. It's director Terrence Malick's second movie. It's Days of Heaven. Let's talk about it and analyze it. Coming up next. So Days of Heaven is Terrence Malick's second feature film released in 1978. Stars Richard Gere as an itinerant worker named Bill. At the beginning of the movie, Bill's working in a factory and he accidentally kills his boss. Running away with his wife and kid sister, they go to the Texas Panhandle to become laborers at a wheat farm. At that farm, there's a magnificent farmhouse and the owner of the property, who's played by Sam Shepard. Well, Sam Shepard starts to take a liking to Bill's wife. Why? Because Bill has lied and claimed that his wife is actually his sister. And at one moment in the movie, Bill overhears a doctor talking to the Sam Shepard farmer character, hearing that this farmer is going to die within a year. Well, then Bill encourages his wife to actually marry the farmer. And guess what? She does, thus beginning a con game. Will the farmer find out about her? What will happen when he does? Well, I've described this plot in hookish terms because, for Terrence Malick, it's unusual to have any sort of clear plot, nonetheless having a plot with such a hook to it. And so, Days of Heaven, if you've not seen a Terrence Malick movie, this is probably the one to start with, either this one or The Thin Red Line. As you know, Malick has beautiful cinematography, and that's what he's known for. And this movie is not like any other movie that came before it. Beautiful camera work, beautiful handheld camera work, amazing photography. Malick actually filmed before sunrise, right after sunset, right during the golden hours, and all the cinematography. I think every single frame of this movie is actually naturally lit outside. The movie 1975's Barry Lyndon by Stanley Kubrick was naturally lit as well. I think that my wild guess is, that might have been an inspiration here for Days of Heaven. And it's got some very memorable scenes, including the wheat harvesting scenes. There's one in the early middle of the movie. It's absolutely beautiful. And then the end, there's another wheat harvesting scene, which I won't give away what happens there, but that's also very memorable. And so, of course, you watch this movie, as internet commentators say, for not just the plot, but the cinematography. It's absolutely magical. There's no movie before 1978, I think, that really looks like Days of Heaven. I also want to mention to you that Terrence Malick is not just a master of photography and cinematography, but of sound. His soundscape to Days of Heaven, like with his other movies, is just absolutely remarkable to me. I watch his movies, as I watch a lot of movies, with my best headphones on. I can't believe not just the musical score here by Ennio Morricone and a guitar piece by the virtuoso guitarist Leo Kottke, but also the sound effects. I was actually shocked this time listening to it, and not watching the movie, but listening to the weather vane, for example, or the harvester, or even the sounds of people breathing.
You hear that?
Yeah.
There's a perfection of Malick's soundscape that amazes me and goes along perfectly with the movie's shots and its themes. So now that I've praised this movie for its aesthetics, let's talk about what this movie might be about. I think it's first important to know that you have a lot of the action in this movie, maybe all of it, stemming from the two major male characters. Now, under them, or being used by them perhaps, are the two major female characters. Bill's wife, played here by Brooke Adams, is married to both men in this movie. And there's this perplexing question of whether she wants to be married to either one, wants to be married to both, is in love with both. But then, of course, the movie, I think this is the key to the movie, that the kid sister of Bill is actually the narrator of the movie. The movie might actually be shot from her perspective. She's supposed to be, I think, a young girl, maybe 12 years old, 13 years old, and you get the voiceover narrator, which is her, and her narration is just actually a little strange.
He used to juggle apples. He used to amuse us. He used to entertain us. They told everybody they were brother and sister. My brother didn't want nobody to know. You know how people are. You tell them something, they start talking.
Typically, voiceover narrators are telling you a lot about the action in the movie, what's going to happen, or what has happened. They're usually layered right on top of the plot. This voiceover narrator, though, is separate from the plot to a great extent. It's actually the ramblings or the musings of a younger child, and it's sort of obliquely or tangentially related to the plot. It makes this movie really interesting, and given the way that it ends, you've got to see this movie then as not just about the two males. In fact, I think it's about the two female characters, in particular this kid sister, and the question of what's going to happen to her. Why is this movie told from her perspective? Well, let's think about the title then, Days of Heaven. Where does that come from? Easy to figure this out. It's in the King James Bible used twice. Once from Deuteronomy, where the Israelites are commanded to, pulse the commandments around their house, to live by them, so that they should live like the days of heaven, which I think refers to the Garden of Eden. And the Garden of Eden in the Bible is a place and time before people had fallen, before people had sinned against God. So this idea that this movie is portraying a Days of Heaven scenario, an Edenic scenario, and indeed, in the middle of the movie, once the Brooke Adams character gets married to the farmer, there is a kind of Edenic period where the four characters live in harmony and enjoy life on the farm and around it.
We've never been this rich, all right? I mean, we were just all of a sudden living like kings. Just nothing to do all day but crack jokes, lay around. We didn't have to work. I'm telling you, the rich got it figured out.
And that goes along with the absolutely magical cinematography, which makes the natural scenes here come alive and look real and amazing. And that leads me to this observation, that the movie is ultra realistic about its time period, 1916, 1917, farming in America, especially in Texas, wheat farming in particular. Lots of costumes that are original to the period. The sounds, the machines, I think they actually used a wheat harvester that was from this period, and you got the house, you got the weather vane, all these objects that are from the period. At the same time it's ultra realistic, it's also ultra metaphorical, especially it's a scriptural allegory. What happens with Bill's character in this movie, saying that his wife is his sister, is the same as what happens to Abraham in the book of Genesis, who does that twice to his own wife when they go down to Egypt. So there's a lot of Bible stories floating around in this movie and getting mixed together. And that's why I think the title Days of Heaven is interesting, because on the one hand it's saying, I think this movie is saying, that you cannot go back to the Garden of Eden because there's always fraud, lying, and murder at the heart of this world as it is. In fact, this movie begins with a founding murder. Literally, I'm punning on that word founding because it happens at a factory founding. Along with the murder, there's the lying and the fraud that goes along with these characters, and that enables the Edenic stretch in the middle of this movie where the four characters enjoy life on the farm. Nevertheless, the fraud is going to be found out. So there's a paradise and a fall dynamic in this movie, heavily all over the place, including in the scenes of harvesting, including in the scenes of the natural world and on all the animal shots in this movie. And then you add in the economic and political dimensions to this movie. You have a rich man, a farmer, and then you have all these poor people working for him, including the three major characters.
You wasted more than 12 bushel in this row. I'm docking you $3.
Well, what are you talking about? It's not fair.
Leave, you're fired.
Wait a minute.
Don't fight
You
about
want
it.
to stay? Then shut up and get back to work.
The mixture of rich and poor, the question of justice for the poor workers who aren't being paid enough, who are kind of screwed over by the overseer, but also the injustice on their part, what they do to the rich man. The movie is actually talking about this sort of universal question of, can there be equality amongst people, first of all? Second, justice has to be dealt out equally. And the movie is sympathetic to everybody, I think, but also harsh on everybody. And that gets us back to the question of the days of heaven. Economically, can a world in which employees and employers ever get along? Romantically, can a world in which we desire other people's wives, other people's women or men, well, can we ever get along? Third, naturally speaking, if we've settled the land terraformed it, transformed it, and now are harvesting wheat from it. Are we at war with nature? Can we ever sort of resolve our position within nature? This question of the loss of Eden comes up throughout this movie. Again, I'll say it again. The very beginning of the movie sets us up for that when Bill kills his own boss. That frames the entire movie and all the action within the movie. And there are heavy metaphors with the fires being likened to the rage within men in particular here, who war with each other. As well, the wind blowing through the wheat fields, the wind signifying all kinds of things for Malick. Spiritual breath on the one hand and unity on the other. Rapid change that's going to cause problems. But nevertheless, all of these themes, humans' position within nature, humans' internal struggles and desires and anger that cause us to be at war with nature, war with ourselves, question of our relationship to God, all of these questions come up in Days of Heaven, as you'd expect from the title. So go see this movie, and if you have, tell us what you think in the comments. I'm really interested to see what your observations are about it. Also, please subscribe to this channel to support what we're doing here. Thank you very much. Have a great day.